One more thing.
One more thing. One more thing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of One More Thing, these deep and meaningful video interviews. I am Dave Columbo Jenkins and I'm joined today by Mr. Wobbler himself, Captain Wobbler. It's Serum. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. Very, very, very busy as usual, but yeah, cracking on.
Cool, man. I'm going to start with a bit of beef, to be honest with you. I've got a little bit of beef with you.
All right.
I haven't got any questions to ask you. You're answering all the questions on TikTok. You've turned regular fans of the music into interviewers. My job is redundant. I don't know what we're going to do for the next hour or so.
You'll have to ask me. You need a more stupid name. You need a username like, I don't know, Big Dong Dave 69 or something like that. And then you need to ask me what my favourite bag of crisps is or something like that.
Okay, this is Big Dong Dave 69 Cheeselobber. What is your favourite packet of crisps?
No. That's going to be my answer to that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
People are going to be like, wow, you're a bit animated in this interview. Not used to the usual deadpan.
Yeah, you described your face in a way. I was watching through a lot of these yesterday in preparation for this discussion, and you described your face. You've noticed that actors tend to just have like a Keanu Reeves type of face and stuff like that, really. And you described it in a certain way. If I was more professional, I would have made a note of that description, but it made me chuckle. It's halfway between worried and dead or something like that.
It's worried and I think worried and bored. I think was
worried and bored, not worried and dead.
Yeah. People have throughout my life just been like, oh, what are you worried about? I'm just like, this is my face. This is just this is what I look like all the time. What do you say to that?
Yeah, not a lot.
There's a lot of things to worry about these days. You know, things ain't getting any cheaper, are they? But yeah.
They're really not. What's the weirdest question that you've chosen to ask? Because I bet there are loads of questions where you just think no before you even get to the camera or anything. But have there been any that made you think wow, you should be a journalist or a good question asker?
I just go for the stupid ones, really. I think what I found on there is a bit more about entertainment. A lot of people do their sort of informative stuff of kind of, here's how I made this tune, but not really how they made the tune, because they're just sort of just played a riff in. Yeah, that's how it went down. So I'm like, I know that making tunes can be a drawn out and tedious thing to watch, so it's not spectator sport. I'll tell you that for free. And I struggle to try and make it one. Well, maybe one day I'll ace my how I made a tune video, but
I like how you've done it, and you've made something very deadpan but very entertaining.
The idea of it, right? The idea of it came from when they first started having like video on Facebook and Instagram. Every promoter would be, "Can you do me a video like telling me how excited you are to play at my event?" And this was, this would happen several times a week. And all of the DJs ones, I mean, we're not very good on camera, most of us. We're not really video trained. And cameras at the time, like now, you can, it sort of adjusts it. So when you're looking at the screen, you're facing the right way. But if you're like eyeballs, like going all over the place, and you're like, "Hi, I'm Serum. I'm really pumped to be playing at this event. It's going to be sick. Great, get down there." Surprisingly enough, that didn't work very well because it's a really bad video. But I thought, oh, well, you know what? Like, I'm not great at this video thing, so that'll be my patter. I'll just be really bad at it, and that'll be that.
And you've made it good. I mean, you have social media is a necessary evil. And I speak to artists about this all of the time, really, on how you would much rather just be making beats and out there playing and doing what you originally set out to do. But you seem to have managed to get the knack of it. So it can't interfere with your day because you're too busy. You're too busy for it to interfere with your day with everything else that you do.
I think... I mean, I'm not going to claim to be the best at it or anything because I'm far from it, but you need to come up with a way that works that, like, you can live with, and you think you're not being too much of a tit, and kind of B, that you can fit into your day quite easily. And if you get a bit of actual conversation going with the people who follow you, it's actually quite fun. Like, I have quite a laugh with the people who follow me. It's like they'll take the piss out of me, I'll do it back. I'll make a joke out of myself, kind of thing. But you don't it's not, people have this idea that's like, oh, I just want to be writing music all the time, I don't want to have to market myself, and they have this idea that like going on, you know, nowadays you have to dress up as a Japanese schoolgirl and dance on TikTok, and it's not quite the case.
Not yet, not yet anyway.
Yeah, got to lose a bit of weight before I can do that, but it can, you know, you can do a bit in a way that like is palatable and quite enjoyable at the same time. So there's ways of doing it, but
and you touched on something there. I mean, these people who send you questions, get involved and stuff like that, they are your fans. They're the people buying tickets. They're the people paying for the music, streaming, and doing all of that amazing stuff, which makes you really, and keeps you doing things. So there has got to be. It's not a one-way street anymore for artists.
Yeah.
Maybe it never
I kind of figured that, like, I've got to figure out how to, like, you know, go on video and do things like this, because I really, really was not very comfortable doing it when I first started. And I'm still a little bit mystified that people want to see the type of videos that I put up. It's like, you know, they don't all fly, but you can just like throw enough kind of crap at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing on there. But there's like occasionally you get like not much, and then you'll have a video that flies that will be about something really stupid. But you just say, oh, well, you know, whatever. They like what they like.
Seems to trigger you ride the wave in that type of way. Something will trigger something. I mean, the recent one, I mean, this was last year now, was the Bible throwing. And that was, you know, a post of yours where, you know, you were talking about the Bibles in the hotel, and then that kind of turned into a little thing similar with biscuits and stuff. You will jump on something which has memeable potential in that type of way.
I don't like plan anything. You just sort of be my idiot self, and strange things happen.
Cool. And lots of cool stuff happens as well.
It's good fun.
This summer has been amazing for you, hasn't it? You've been non-stop.
Yeah, the bookings have been crazy. It's been a lot of, like, Kings of the Rollers has been a really big festival act. So, and what I'm really happy with actually is, like, we don't ever go there and play like a kind of festival set where it's like, oh, we got to play all the safe big tunes kind of thing. We can still get up there and just play like the music that we want to play, and like break whatever tunes we want to break. Looking forward to getting back to clubs though, because you always know, like, in the clubs, festivals, you don't know who you're playing to. They're just people who might like another act and they come and see you. They don't know if they like you or not, and there's loads of people. But when you're at a club, you know these are your people. So they're the people who are into drum and bass enough to come and see it just for drum and bass. You know, they're not going to a festival to see a load of other stuff. And, like, you know, festivals are like, some of them have amazing sound. Sometimes it's like outdoor events, like the sound restrictions kind of kill you off a little bit. So looking forward to every venue having brain shattering sound, and been able to really go at it in sweaty rooms.
It is club season, and that's a really interesting point. I mean, drum and bass can, like, you know, you fire up a drum and bass tune at a festival, especially if it's like at the end of a kind of slower set or something like that, and you can see the crowd get instantly elevated. It is naturally festival music, but it comes from the clubs, and that's where it exists and where it was incubated and where it was developed. It's still a club music. It doesn't matter how big this thing gets now. It's still the best place to experience it are in those kind of small to medium clubs, low ceilings, few lights, everybody screaming in your face. That's real drum and bass, no matter how big it gets.
It really is.
Go on, cool. Do you play any club sets during the summer at all then, or is this like as you getting booked?
I mean, I struggle to remember. It's been so hectic. When people are like, well, where were you last week? I genuinely, like, it all melts into one. I struggle to remember these days. But yeah, there's been a few clubs, but it's nice when you've done a big string of festivals. You're like, when you're doing the club season, you look forward to the next festival season to see what's going to happen. Like, who, you know, who's going to be getting booked, who you going to be playing with, like, and what kind of style are the people going to like. Because when we came out of lockdown, we were straight into peak festival season.
Yeah.
And I know I was quite glad that I kept my profile. Like, I just kept doing stuff. Some people were, like, totally understandably, like, demotivated during lockdown. Like, they hated it, and it was very hard to, like, there were periods where I was really productive and really out there, periods where I wasn't very, like, productive. But on the whole, I think people came out of lockdown still knowing that I was around.
Very
Um,
much,
and
very
things,
much. I
so I
mean, there's
came
still
out of that
massive
quite
songs.
strong, but
There were still massive
um,
tracks released on Souped Up and things like that. You didn't stop releasing on the label. Like Veteran was huge and stuff. We gaffed
yeah,
on the
Chop
Wob
House came out
ourselves
as
and did
well.
the Wobblers t-shirt during lockdown as well.
Yeah,
There
I
was
put
loads
that
of
on in a
stuff.
video the other day, and people were like, "Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?" So, you know what, Dave, we might need to go again.
Yeah, do you know, if we were ultra planned, then we could have both worn our Wobblers t-shirt for this. I thought about it
Yeah,
late last night and I found it right at the bottom of a pile and it needed an iron. And being lazy, I couldn't be bothered to iron it. But I thought I could do this big reveal and go, look, I still remember our Wobblers
yeah,
situation.
I'm with you on the not ironing, Dave. I'm terrible.
But I mean, this year, like going back to the point you just made, like we just went hurtling into a festival season last summer.
Mm,
Like from July, it was kind of mid festival season. There were all sorts of cancellations. Things were still up in the air. This summer has been the first summer where it's been the full summer, really, since all
yeah,
of that palaver is now past. So that makes like this particular year really exciting.
yeah. There's new stuff has happened. We've had a whole year of like some new artists have popped up that weren't getting booked. It's kind of shown majors are getting interested in drum and bass, and it's a bit like everybody, even if you're tiny, is like one tune away from being massive. You can have this one tune now, and it can stream absolutely bum loads, and you're up there, say people like Goddard and Vibe Chemistry, who, like, if you asked me maybe like 6 months to a year ago, like, oh, do you know these guys? I sort of heard of them a bit, but then like they've had massive tunes that have like got on the radio and got in the charts um like kind of beating a lot of like more streams than a lot of the people who've been around for a very, very long time. So something's happened, like the majors are really, really interested in D&B at the moment, but I feel like after that first festival season, when we just come out of lockdown, I think everyone is expecting it to be like a big equalizer, and it really wasn't. It just, everything kind of went straight back to where it was for a bit. Like the bookings that were already there a year and a half ago got worked through like double time. And then it felt like once we got to the end of the year, a lot of the like hard times started biting in then a little bit. Like clubs were struggling a bit, and I wonder how, with the cost of living and stuff, like how, and electricity and all the rest of it, how that's going to play out once we're back to clubs. I'm just hoping that the clubs can take that double hit of like COVID and then that.
Yeah, I've seen some really, really worrying kind of posts on that and things like that. And we're still
Yeah.
in totally uncharted territory, really, in that way. And it's impossible to predict things, really. I mean, we were talking just before we press record about like the sit down raves, where a lot of the tunes that you're about to release now, you actually kind of, premiered or launched or broke to crowds sitting down. And I mean, that seems like luckily a dim and distant memory now, really.
Yeah, I can remember. Yeah, so I was saying my next release is Chop House VIP. I played that at like for the first time at a sit down in Birmingham, and I was DJing kind of up at the top, like almost like on a balcony of a club, and beneath me were a load of little kind of little booths that I couldn't really see the people in there. Could hear little bits of applause and stuff when a tune was getting played, but it was like playing to a bunch of people having their dinner. And Veteran Remix, which came out what, about 5 weeks ago. I played that for the first time in a thing at like a sit down at Lakota, and it was just, I think that was after the football had happened and everyone had, so I think trying to get everyone to stay sat down was like a bit of a lost cause, really, because the people have been getting up for, was it the Euros or the World Cup or whatever. Big football fan, obviously, not knowing the difference between those. But that was a total write-off trying to get people to sit down at that. But
they were my favorite sit down nights. I mean, we had a couple in Cardiff where it was the bouncers weren't as bad as they were in London, and I'm not too sure what they were like in Bristol. I didn't go to any sit down events in Bristol, but I think in London there was a lot more authoritarian rules. But certainly in Cardiff we had fun, and the bouncers would, it was almost like what's the time, Mr. Wolf, and they would turn their back knowing that people were going to stand up and rave, and then turn back around on us, and we all had to sit down again. And I had a few like that was the I don't miss that. I don't want to ever return to that, but that's a memory that I'll cherish from those moments. It must have been really frustrating from especially the type of music that you play. You want people to kick off. You play music to kick off too. That is your raison d'etre. Like, you know, you're not making lounge vibes or chill out vibes here, are you?
No, no. I mean, I did write some bit more musical stuff during lockdown. I've got a load of tracks that I started then. I wrote them in a bit of a different way, and the mixes all like once I got into clubs, I was like, these mixes suck. Like so, but the music I like, bit more summery kind of stuff. I feel like now we've had our first festival season, it's definitely the stuff that's going off is like super hard jump up is back. Like, you know, HeadX is doing really well. And it's kind of that and big sing along tunes. So pop bootlegs and like loads of tunes that have things like Afterglow sort of having another day in the sun's been a bit of a mad one because that like people just started playing that and it's just stuff that big sing-along seem to be the thing, but that's not really like I don't really make those kind of tunes. And my thing was when I came through and really made a big go of drum and bass was I came in off the back of Belgian Jump Up where people were like, you know, wanted something still lively but a bit more rolling, a bit more like steppy, more of a groove to it, and that was kind of where I came in. So I'm glad I'm still around, still making tunes. People are still enjoying it. But when I look at the sounds that are around at the moment, I'm like, well, this is pretty good because this is kind of like what the situation felt like immediately before I had my last like massive rush of popularity. And it's like, well, great, you know, if things pan out the same way, then
definitely. And I think you make the type of
another
music.
big crack of the whip.
Yeah, and you're always cracking the whip. I think you make tunes which really fit with that kind of vibe. Like a lot of the tracks that you make would mix in lovely, doubled up with stuff like Afterglow. So you can always, I mean, I say this in so many interviews. The beauty of drum and bass is that you can have that massive vocal belter, but you can stick in something absolutely rotten and grotty underneath it. And that's the beauty of it. So then you've got the sing along a crowd all nice and happy. You've got the other people who are about to start stroking their chin really happy because you've thrown in something else underneath. There's no other genre where you can do that in such an efficient way as drum and bass, really. You know, it's made and the double drops are made for that. Like,
it's always been like a mishmash of styles. If you go back to the 90s, people would sample anything and it would be a tune might have like a bit off an easy listening kind of tune and then it go into some kind of electro thing and then into like a reggae sample and then and tunes would have loads of different genres mashed in it mashed right into it. So you've always been able to get away with quite a spectacular number of different things, which I like. You know, I like to try and find new things that people aren't listening to that they're not doing in drum and bass at the moment. Be like, right, let me see if I can bring some of that in. Let me see if I can make that work. And I get bored easily. I get bored of whatever sound I'm doing, particularly when a sound gets successful, like the foghorn thing that got really successful, but then everybody was just making one note foghorn tunes. And it's like, well, you don't need hundreds of those. You need one or two of those. And then that was right. Oh, what's my next thing going to be? And I was like, there's like the wobbler thing. I was doing like loads of tunes with steel pans in, like flutes and panpipes. And I like to try weird stuff. That there's a whole heap of tunes that have been floating around that I was probably playing on my mini mix things that I was doing during lockdown that are still yet to come out, but are maybe going to be contenders for whatever my next thing is that I'm doing.
You went through a little kind of Berlin techno, kind of trancey little vibe as well with the stuff on 31 as well. I thought was really interesting and completely flipped the switch on. That was almost like the antithesis to the foghorn stuff, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was probably like Trident you're thinking of there.
Yes.
Yeah, that I was really happy with that tune. It didn't quite because that ended up coming out in lockdown as well. I don't know if people had quite the chance to warm to it. I still love that tune. I think it's like musically is one of the best tunes I've made. and it was a bit of an unusual idea. There was a guy did a kind of brass band cover of it, which was absolutely amazing. The I wonder, it's probably on my Facebook, a guy called Corey Riker, who I tried to meet in London, but just didn't cross paths. But I think there's definitely more legs in that as well. But I like to try lots of things, and you just don't know what is going to connect with people.
Yeah.
It's fun though. That's part of the challenge for me. I almost like I enjoy being the underdog a lot more than the sort of established act. Because then when you're this, like, say with the foghorn thing, it's like people just see you as, oh, you did this kind of thing. I was like, oh, I made a few tunes that were like a reaction against something else that was happening, and then it's like I'm almost like having to react against a style like that I made.
Yeah, that doesn't seem fair. I mean, when you find people biting on your style, because it's happened a few times really, but the foghorn example is the best one. When people start biting on your style, and I'm not too sure if I've asked you this before, like, you've got to be one step ahead of yourself and any copycats really in that case. And it must be really frustrating. You've sculpted this sound for ages, you've been working on something, and then loads of people just jump on it. But you need to be, and you already are, by the very virtue of time being linear, one step ahead of that. You have to be. You can't rest on your laurels as an artist, can you?
No, you have to reinvent. I really admire people like Shy FX is great at that. He'll do a load of music, disappear off for a bit, come out with something else, and always hits the bullseye. I mean, Zinc would be another good one where he like stopped doing D&B, made a sort of style of house, which I've heard him say in interviews before that like it was really hard. People just didn't want to hear it at first, but you have to challenge yourself to make music that like some of your fans aren't going to like, and then you're going to pick up some new ones. But the way all of the music is made, all of mine is thinking it will come from a place of like, right, what isn't being done at the moment that I think's interesting, and what, like, can I make that work? Like, can I make that popular? When you make it popular, another thing I always, like, a bit of advice I'll always give to newer producers is like, don't be scared of like rinsing your own sound, because if you come up with something and it gets popular, if you don't rinse it, somebody else will. Like, you've got to go in, have a good old go at it, do what you want to do with it until you're bored, and then like other people will jump on it if it goes really well, and then it will get even more boring, and then you really will hate it, But
yeah,
and
that's a really good
people
point.
come
Otherwise,
along and
somebody
they're
else.
technically really good. They'll make great versions of it. Like the person who's first doesn't always make the most of it. Like there are artists who are great at like seeing what's going on and managing to commercialize it in a way that the originators can't. It's very frustrating for people who like enjoy being original, because sometimes you can see like a bigger eyes come along and make a lot more money than you did doing kind of what you did. But I don't consider myself to be a person who's like a great like barometer of public opinion. I mess around, I make stuff that interests me, and I try and do it well enough that like somebody likes it. And
I bet you do that really well.
Some of it lands, some of it doesn't. But that's I like take a bit of a risk, I might put a tune out and someone will be like, this guy's lost his marbles. Like, what is this about? This, like, how can you go from making one sort of tune to another sort of tune? But it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And you're absolutely right about people like, if you don't rinse your sound, somebody else is going to come along and totally exploit that. So you have to believe in your own sound enough and not worry about overplaying things. Because I speak to a lot of people who don't play enough of their songs. They're like, oh, I should probably play more of my tunes in my sets. But it's a self-confidence thing then.
Yeah, it depends what you want. Like, yeah, there's like you learn by imitating. When I was learning, and the first tunes that I had that blew were like me figuring out how old jungle was made, like where the samples came from, and people want me to go back to that all the time. It's like, well, there's not much there for me at the moment. I might have a great idea of like, oh, here's something really new I've got to add, but I wanted to make stuff that stood up to modern production. And that was when the big things at that time was stuff like pendulum and like clips. At the clips is jump up sort of music, and those sort of tunes were. I was like, no, I want to hear more like jungle sort of stuff, more like sort of 96 and 97 sounding stuff as well, like the Dope Dragon kind of thing. So I wanted to hear something like that in the club. So that was what like me and Blade Runner were doing, was like we were just trying to make stuff that sounded like that would work in a like modern club environment and stand up to what was being played, because we didn't really want to play that. So it's always like a reaction against something that's happening.
Yeah.
I say when you don't like, I think that like what a lot of people think is like, if you're a producer, if you don't like what's going on at the moment and you're like, oh, all the big tunes are rubbish, that can be a great thing, because once people are sick of that, they're probably going to want the complete opposite, and that's your time to come in and make what you want to make. It's like when people get bored of a sound, someone's got to come in and fill that gap, and it's always going to be people who have stuck to their guns.
Yeah.
I think that's what Headex has done really well, is when Kings of the Rollers kicked off and Souped Up kicked off, and that jump up sound pretty much disappeared. Like in the UK, you didn't really get, and everyone was like, oh, I don't make jump up anymore, I make rollers. And I was sitting there thinking, no, don't do that. Like make jump up, and then you're in like, you're next up, you know, like, because people will get sick of what I'm doing and they'll want something else, and then I'll have to come up with something. You know, by the time it was getting really popular, I was like, right, I'm going to need something else on the back burner here. But the people who come in off the back of another style and sort of rebel against what's popular, they'll be the people right at the front. And if you're clever, you can get a good 2 or 3 years before anyone else like really cottons on.
Definitely. Headex is a really, really good example, because he did do a couple of rollery tunes. He did that tune Pub Grub with Boo, I think. And there was stuff like, you know, he kind of showed like, I can do that. And I remember him saying he'd written loads and loads of different rollers and stuff, but he didn't want to release them. And that kind of sticking to your guns, but diversifying in other ways and having a label. And so you're still supporting something, you're still relevant, but you're still known for that signature sound. Is a really, really good point.
Yeah, he just still can do like a bigger version of what he was doing before. And yeah, not just go, right, I'm going to make what everybody else is making, because nothing stays in fashion forever. No.
The big sound at the moment is the 4/4 sounds. Like everything's gone kind of techno-y and stuff like that. What do you make of that? Do you play any of that in any of your sets or anything?
Well, I had like Night Train by Teddy Killers. That's like the one when I heard it, I really liked it, because I remember there was an old house tune called Night Train. I used to hear in clubs when I was like 15 or 14 or 15, going to my first clubs in like underage and whatever. And that was one of the tunes. And I was like, it really reminded me of that. And it was just it was a good twist on that like long bass sound kind of thing. The 4/4 drop was really cool. We had a bit of like, it was like kind of bit of donk kind of thing, but I wouldn't play whole sets of it. But I just thought that tune was really fun, and it had that right blend that I like. I don't like all of that kind of stuff, but that tune just kind of jumped out at me. It was like, yeah, this is like that done in a way that I like. So that was one of the big tunes that we put out on Souped Up.
Yeah, you put out a lot of big tunes. This year marks 5 years of Souped Up. It does. Like that.
Yeah. It's flown. Like it's flown by. In lockdown, the label like really kept me going. It gave me something like some structure to get on with. So I was like, right, I did a run of singles. I like got some vinyl done, did some more merchandise, and carried on pumping out releases. We had I was lucky that I had a lot of tunes that I built in the clubs that people wanted. I was like, all right, well, some people chose not to put their tunes out, and I just thought, well, people know they want these tunes anyway, so yeah, let's just put them out. Let's put them out. We'll get, it's like, well, I'm going to need to do something to get some money in. And I, there were two schools. I thought there was like, is it a good time to put out club music? And it turned out, not through any incredible grand plan of mine, but it just was lucky that people were like, yeah, we've got money, we've got nowhere to go, or no way to spend our money. So actually had some really good releases, like selling digital downloads became really good.
That's brilliant.
And had a couple of tunes top like Beatport in all genres. So Veteran VIP did, and Chop House did. That stayed up there like top of the whole charts for like a couple of weeks. That did. And I was like, well, that's mad.
Testaments to how strong this music is and how passionate fans are about it. That it did survive. That it didn't, kind of people didn't just tune out for the time that they couldn't rave or anything. It kind of shows how strong it is and how strong the fan base is for it.
Yeah, so we really took it up a notch over lockdown, just to give me stuff to do. So we went from doing the usual one release a month that we'd done most of the time to doing, right, we'll have an EP at the end of the month or sort of a double single or something, and then like some individual tracks, maybe like a remix in the middle of the month, or I'll put out a solo track. I did my little series, and I have my weird little doodled artwork that I'd always thought, I'd love to just draw and do my own artwork, and they're like varying quality. The Chop House one, like, people really seem to like that though, so I think that was definitely the best one without a doubt. So did a load of those. It's just something fun to do, put them on vinyl, sold loads of t-shirts and stuff like that. But it gave me something to do. It's been a challenge coming back to being busy DJing and trying to keep that machine running, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Well, loads of people started up like Patreons and things like that, where they were offering incredible services and stuff like that. But it's like when the clubs open up again, you're not going to be able to commit to what you're offering on Patreon and still be a touring artist. I think there was a hope that we wouldn't have to tour quite as much because of things like Patreon and stuff. But it's been hard finding that recalibration, hasn't it?
Yeah. I just feel really lucky that I had a business that everything I could pump into it would still help me afterwards. I decided not. I was like, well, I've got something here where if I put a load of effort into this, then at the end it will be worth it. I won't have to abandon anything. I'll just have had a load of good releases, and hopefully the label will be in better shape for like doing tour nights and doing just getting better artists for new releases. Like, people would look at it and be like, yeah, that's a good label to go on. So
yeah. I mean, this year has been so many different releases, like the Inside Info and Leveler, stuff on like Enter as well, Mosey, of course. Like, it's been another really, really busy year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it's been a year of experimentation, because the sounds in the scene at the moment are changing. So I've just got to try a lot of different stuff, like test out some different artists. And like you say, like I was saying, like, some work really well, some don't quite land, but that's running a label. Like, no one, if you only just play it safe and only do things you're like absolutely sure are going to smash, then you are going to miss some stuff.
Yeah, and also be quite conservative in that way as well. You're not taking any risks. The whole idea, like, the best stuff comes from taking risks and trying these things out and seeing what works, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I try and approach things.
Yeah. So you're starting now. You've got like you're just at the start of releasing a whole new load of things, because it's been like there's been lots of Kings of the Rollers things. It's been remixes as well. But now we're back into Serum season now, aren't we?
Yeah. So I realised I hadn't released very much music for a while. I had a lot of tunes that I wanted to put out, and we've been working on a Kings of the Rollers album for like a really long time. I think I was constantly leaving a gap in my schedule for that, but we just kept realizing we just weren't where we wanted to be with it. And it's really coming together now. But I was like, right, I can't hold on to these solo tunes any longer. So Veteran remix that came out, and Titanic with Need for Mirrors as well. And then so we're going to have Chop House VIP is the next release. Then there's going to be Wave Riders, which is like that tune that everybody's asking me about all the time. Going to need to have another tune for people to ask me about all the time once I put that out. But and then a tune called Ride the DX, which is a kind of wobbly jungle thing, and then another like a jump up tune called Shredder, and then that's my little run of 6 singles. We've got I did something that I've wanted to do for ages, which was to find somebody to do some more like in-depth animations for every track. So I was actually came through the guys who run Electrical Sound System in Edinburgh.
Oh, right.
So I think they had hired someone to do some animations for them, and so I got a message one day from an artist called Freya Buckland, and she was like, "Oh, I just did some work for these guys," and they were just said like, "Oh, I should definitely speak to you about like whether you need some stuff doing." And it was like just as I was getting ready to put these singles together, and just like saw her work and was like, "Yeah, that's like absolutely perfect."
Brilliant. Has she done the one then with you and Boo and Trigger, then the one for the remix of Veteran then as well?
Yeah, with all like crazy dinosaurs and, and all of that stuff. And like, they're all amazing. Like when I said like the work she did was like outstanding, and I kind of gave her a bit of an idea of what I wanted, but just the different things that she introduced, like all this, just kind of the things that like that wouldn't have occurred to me to put in a video. Like they're really sick. Like I'm looking forward to every time I put one of them out. I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait to see like what people think of this. It is very hard at the moment to and lots of labels are struggling with this. Like, you know, I've struggled with it. Is that the minute you post anything that looks like a release asset, like a cover or anything that looks like you're selling something, unless you're throwing a whole load of money behind it, it just dies. Like it's very hard to market a label on social media at the moment.
Yeah.
Because anything that looks a bit like an advert just gets throttled within an inch of its life. And I think people just generally, they don't like being advertised to either. So having something like that where it's like genuinely entertaining to watch. And so there's a massive stroke of luck, the right person coming along at the right time.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So big up Freya, and also big up Joe as well. Need for Mirrors. Like I think, like you know, the pair of you work really well together, but it's not a combination that anyone would have kind of thought of to begin with. But I think you both kind of complement each other's styles and both have that kind of minimalism and sense of less is more in very, very different ways. But Titanic is a great example, another great example of how well you work together.
Yeah, I think like Joe makes tunes that like you really cannot tie down to any period in time. Like the influences, he just doesn't do what anybody else is doing. And sometimes you'll say, "Oh, I like this tune." "Oh, yeah, I made that about 5 years ago or something." But it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter that like how old it is, because it doesn't sound like a tune that anybody would have made like 5 years ago. You can't tell when they were made. They're like his approach to like how experimental he is, like really sings to me. Like so
definitely.
There's
always something that he said to me in an interview once. It's always stuck with me about him, and he's like, you know, there's music for the peaks and there's music for the troughs, and I'm happiest making music for the troughs, like those kind of down moments in the set, like those, because not everything can be full pelt all of the time. There's those tunes where people reset a little bit and kind of get their energy back, and then you can kick off again. And, you know, he said he's happiest making those type of tracks, really. And I guess maybe that's why the pair of you work as well, because you make absolute hooters and he makes the tracks in the troughs and stuff like that, or knows to make, you know, he can also make some absolute peak time bangers as well. But maybe that's why you complement each other in that type of way, really. That kind of, both of you are coming in from a very different perspective, but have a similar approach in that type of way.
Yeah, I think so. It's just like musically we connect, like we understand what each other are doing, and there's like a respect there. I mean, I find I'm just as likely, like one night I might play somewhere and like I'm very much the peak, and saying then I might go and like, you know, do a gig in Belgium where I'm like the trough, you know, I'm I'm like light entertainment, even though the night before I was playing stuff that was like people thought was ripping their heads off. So I've always sat in both areas there. It's definitely like your festival season at the moment. It does feel a bit at the moment like, I don't think like, I don't know if it's just the festival crowd, but I feel a little bit like they don't know what to do in the troughs. If you're not playing something that's like absolute face melter, like go bananas music, or a big sing along, it feels like the trough's missing at the moment. And I definitely see people who are making deeper sorts of styles having a bit of a struggle. And I forget who it was. I saw a post on Twitter the other day, and they're like, "Look, why is it in drum and bass? Like in outside of drum and bass, we've got music that's really chilled out, doing really well. Like in like some of the house musics, like the really successful stuff like Bicep and like Krangbin and stuff like that, doing like really chilled music, doing really well. Yeah, in drum and bass, it's like it's having a bit of a pop moment. But I'm finding like I'm just like, I'm not going to turn up and play music I don't want to play. I will adjust my set as best I can, but I'm not going to rock up and play like pop music that I don't enjoy just to get the sing along, or play like music that I think's that just I would never play normally in a million years just to get the reaction. Like I've got to do it on my own terms. But
I saw that post as well, and I can't remember because the point was it's like that the deep stuff always gets relegated to the warm up part of the night, whereas Bicep would be the headliner. And I think that was the point of it as well, wasn't it? It's that the deep stuff just isn't getting the kind of the peak time selling out huge stadium kind of statuses, whereas at the moment drum and bass has never really been bigger in terms of the fan base. But maybe because that fan base is really young and they're all getting into it now, that time
there's going to be an influx, definitely. Like a lot of the times when there's been an influx of new fans, sometimes it ties in with a style that I don't really like, but so be it. I have to remind myself that I when I came into drum and bass, I came in like I kind of the first music that I liked just kind of through my brother was like heavy metal kind of stuff, and then I like got into hip hop, got into like dance, kind of the Prodigy, and then got into like rave music, and it was kind of like like hardcore first, and then it like where it's the sort of like 94 95 like happy hardcore, and then into drum and bass. But I look back at some of the stuff I listened to, and I'm like, I wouldn't listen to that in a million years now. But it's easy to forget like that you came in through some music that like now you look back and you're like, that's pretty questionable. So you have to like, it's very, very easy to forget, and I have to remind myself all the time because I'm as guilty of moaning as anybody else is. But you've got to like hold your nerve during those times. But I do feel like I want to hear like that deeper sound being represented a lot more, because maybe that will be the next thing. Because stuff like in D-Bridge came out of Bad Company and then came into like starting Exit, and for a while, like the real like heads loved it. But I did go, I would go to some nights and the crowd where harder music was being played and the crowd didn't get it. But then it went off and became its own thing. And it had a whole, like their whole crowd that was like, loved that sound and didn't have to like worry about what, whoever was playing at One Nation or whatever those sort of raves. It had its own crowd, and that was like something that I've always thought, well, that's really cool. Like that's something like definitely something to aspire to, is to be able to have your people there. You put a night on, and it's like your people are going to turn up and they're going to enjoy it.
Definitely. And it took like tracks like True Romance and Glimpse and stuff for D-Bridge to really kind of prove that point, really, and then the whole autonomic thing. But I'd say that's what you've done, and what what you guys, the three of you have done, the four of you have done as Kings of the Rollers as well. You've kind of created your own movement and that kind of renaissance for the melting pot where anything goes, and creating those crazy like back to back to backs with like absolute legends and new generation people and stuff like that, was exactly, that's an example of you guys creating your own lane, creating your own, and bringing like-minded people in and joining dots, which other promoters hadn't quite done really in the type of way that you guys did.
Yeah, we just put on like the rave that we would enjoy. Like it was like, right, here are the sets that we want to hear. So let's get that in there. But like anything, you can never just do your one thing and then rest on it, because people are going to get bored of that. It's mad. You see a lot more of the three-way back-to-backs at nights now. So that idea, there are a lot of people who set up like groups that were like it. Some of them stayed, some of them like didn't. But I mean, there's some great groups like, you know, like The Source, wicked music, and like Watch the Ride as well, really good. So they've and the best ones were the ones that looked like a really natural coming together of the right people, were the ones that stuck. Whereas some of it was just like, just people seeing something cool and going, yeah, let's have a go, like let's have a try. And some of them stuck around and some didn't. I mean, we've got you got to give credit to SAS, because in a way it was like they were going massive, and it's like there's nothing like that for DJs, is there? That was one of the thoughts. We naturally, the three of us had come together because I was doing back-to-backs with Voltage, I was doing back-to-backs with Blade Runner, and then the minute we did a set together on the radio, it was like we could sell this, because that was easy. That felt like we'd been rehearsing that like for months.
You did make it look really easy. It was because you're mates, really, isn't it? I mean, you've highlighted both of them as like the main reason why you do what you do. Like, both like kind of like Voltage for his work ethic has really inspired you, and like Blade Runner has been with you all of the time. You both went and you signed to Dread within a couple of months of each other and stuff like that, didn't you?
Yeah,
really? And so you've known each other. You've got that language. Well. You've got that language between you and that dialogue. You know each other. You've been working together so long that you know what each other are thinking in that way, and can finish off each other's mixes.
Yeah, it's just like we know where we've all come from. Like we like some different things, but then we like a lot of the same things. We've come from the same backdrop of music, and gone I think lockdown made us go our separate ways a little bit with music, of like what we wanted to achieve. Kind of Blade Runner's gone more in like a bit more of a techie direction. I kind of did all the like the wobbly kind of stuff, and my pan pipes and whatever else, and Voltage is now going in more like a real dancehall kind of direction, which is like he's like absolutely smashing that. It's like going to be the next 12 months of like his solo releases are going to like really make a massive impact on the scene. I think he's probably like next in line out the three of us. There's always somebody who's like edges ahead a little bit throughout the whole thing, and whenever one of us sees the other one doing that, it's like, right, I gotta like keep up and come up with something new that's gonna like take me in that direction. But it's good. It's like really good friendly competition. Like we keep each other sharp. We share opportunities as well. Like
that's
when
brilliant.
One of us gets something, it's like, right, we're always building sort of network for the three of us to use, like getting new vocalists, getting in with labels or whatever, and we're all sort of with the same management as well. So
absolutely, man. And that's like, I had Club Glow on this video series recently, and they're the same, like as four people just coming together and helping each other out, and whether one of them has a release or they all have a release together, it benefits everybody, and Inja's included in that mix. Like, he did the closing show of Boomtown with a little sound. He's launched his label and stuff like that, and he's like doing since lockdown has been doing the DJ and performing thing as a complete accident, kind of adapting to being on tour and being able to like, right, my DJ's not here, okay, I'm gonna mix an MC and stuff like that. So like Inja's also in that kind of friendly competition mix as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like that. That is a very good point. Like he's like, I think he's always dabbled in production on the quiet, and we haven't really known. Or he's mentioned it, but we haven't really heard it. But he, in the same way, I think like I'd started working with him. So when Kings of the Rollers came through, it was like, right, well, as far as I'm concerned, like he's someone we definitely need to bring in and that we all need to work with. And it's gone on from there. And yeah, what he's managed to do for himself is it's really big. And I saw a post the other day that was like, you know, what I'm trying to think like how it was brought up. It was about seeing like Dave doing like a headline set. Was it Reading or something like that? And it was like, oh, you know, we need that in D&B. And it's like Inja was he's always been really switched on when it comes to like songwriting, and so doing something that doesn't just sound like like the kind of chat you get at a rave, but on a song. He's like on a tune. He's like he writes proper songs, and it doesn't really feel, maybe probably because a lot of drum and bass doesn't have the space for proper songs. Like if it's like really rowdy drum and bass, you might get a one-liner or like a vocal intro, but there's not always space for an MC to write a song over a whole track because they're too intense. But the more the more the MCs can find people who will write songs and get on them, we could have that because we've got the talent in the scene. And like Inja's been great at that because he's one of the first to come through, and he repeatedly wins best MC the drum and bass arena awards. But I think it's because he shows that he can write he writes a lot of songs. He has solo albums. He has he has big hits where he can take like a big tune and then do a vocal over it. You know, he did Vanta Black, he did Lumberjack, Couscous with Boo. And they were all tunes that were floating around, and he can come on he knows the right tune to get on and can write a proper song on it that enhances it and takes it, like makes a good go of it for like the streaming audience.
Yeah, it's not just a feature spot, is it? It's not just chatting bars over something. It's
not.
turning it into another song. And I think, you know, we've also got like Degs and DRS as well. And this is just on the male vocalist side, you know, like, you know, what people like A Little Sound are doing, and Rhea, and so many other artists. Like, it's great time for vocals in that type of way, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the MCs could always like earn their crust by going and doing the raves. You know, and there's a lot of people who did great doing the raves. You know, they're up and down the country, like doing really, really well. Whereas the like people who are singers and songwriters have like they could get on a tune, but there hasn't been much of an opening for a singer to then do anything live with drum and bass, which has been a bit of a barrier. So seeing like full vocal live sets is that's a good thing as well, you know. Because I mean, Ninja's always done that thing where he's a great MC, he's a great stage MC, and he's a great songwriter, and there's a market ready for like MCs. But yeah, I definitely have always felt sorry for vocalists who really want to put a lot into drum and bass but don't MC in a way that like raves have really got down with. And it's good seeing people find a way around it, you know, find a way around that. Where it's like, right, I'm going to do a live set. I'm going to learn to DJ, and I'm going to start putting the tunes in and do it.
Definitely.
Like just forcing their way in there. It's like, it's good to see like the kind of ingenuity. Because for a long time, I struggled sometimes to get MCs to like. It was hard to get them to record because almost like some didn't really see the value of it, or were like just doing so well it probably just didn't matter, you know, like doing so well that they didn't need to do that. And because it requires something quite different. Not everybody who's like a good like rapper could get on stage and host like an hour of drum and bass, go at it hard for an hour. Like that's something like totally different.
Two very different art forms, especially when you don't know what the DJ is playing and it's based on dub culture. That, you know, an MC is just going to react off, you know, they've got to know the tunes. That's why somebody like SP always excites me, because he seems to know the tunes inside out just as well as the DJs. And they're two very, very, very different art forms in that way, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. I mean, one thing I'll never forget, like the first time when I played and I had like Skibber on a set, and massive loss for the scene, like him passing away. But the very first time he was on a set, he probably never heard a set of mine at all. I was playing a lot of vocal tunes, and every time I heard him on a set, it was like non-stop NCing, and I was like, right, well, I was like, well, I'm not going to try and make it any easier. But he was like, it was like he knew my set like better than I did. Like the minute a vocal came on, just like boom, like lightning quick. Like,
wow, go on.
Not every MC can do that. And Inge's the same. He's just like, it's like they can anticipate when that's going to happen, and it was like that was like so impressive to me.
Yeah,
and as well,
I've often wondered if there's like a little kind of code, and I've asked DJs as well, especially if they work with a specific MC. There's a little code, like if you put up 2 fingers, that means a vocal's going to come in. If we put up 3 fingers, that means it's a very special dub that you've never been played before. Because you do get some MCs which just seem to get it and they know. And Skibble is definitely one. I mean, rest in peace, man. It was a huge loss, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he could kind of go on any kind of set and it would work. And like good MCs, they get on the stage and like the crowd's just in the palm of their hand from the get-go. And I think sometimes the UK's always represented MC culture really, really well. But sometimes, say, like in Europe, people they maybe they hear it on a recording and they don't really understand it. And you often get comments like when there's a set and there's an MC, I was like, why do they need to have these guys rapping? And it's the same with like, why do they need to do reloads? Why do they need to have this? Yeah. But it like when you see how the MC works the crowd, and as a DJ, like you see the extra that it adds to the set. And those little like some of the best moments in the set is like you get these points where you're really like in lockstep with the MC, and you're almost like, right, if I play this tune now, they're gonna go nuts. Yeah. You see them building, and you're like, right, no, you can decide on what tune to play based on like where the MC's going. Or I'm like, I know Inja's got a bar for this tune, and I'm like, right, this is gonna blow the place up, because it's like not only is it the tune, it's like what he's gonna do, and yeah, it's like it's another element of like how you build your set is like when you're working with them just to blow the roof off. Yeah.
And now you're almost playing, you've got the MC in the palm of your hand. Then I've seen you do that with Trigger, and it's like, if you gas up the MC enough and then they're just kicking off, that's all going to translate immediately to the crowd, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like one thing I like to do is if it's an MC who I've written tunes with, you can work those like little PAs in of their tracks, and you can surprise them with their own tunes, and like watching, just seeing like the look on like an MC's face. Say the first gig I did when I came back out of lockdown was with Spider in Sheffield at Tuesday Club, and it was like I'd forgotten like the smell of the club. It was like the day after lockdown lifted. I'd been and got like my second jab like that morning. And was like, I hope this doesn't KO me because I got this show. But like went down there, and it's like when All Ganja Man dropped All Ganja Man like midway through the set, and just where it's like getting a reload of his tune, and it's getting a massive sing along, and it's just like, he like just I was like I've got to video this, and just like when he turns around and looks at it, so just after getting the reload and everyone sung along, and it's just like the face was just like, fuck me, I've missed this, like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It was like such a good feeling. Like that little moment will like just be definitely like live on in my mind. But like,
brilliant.
It was like, we both missed this, just seeing like coming out, we haven't had a proper gig in a year and a half. Like, there, your vocals just got a my beat, his vocal getting a reload, people still, they still like us. They still like us. Like they ain't forgotten. Yeah.
Oh, go on. I've got goosebumps now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So now,
I mean, a bit emotional,
Yeah. And I hope, and I did say at the time, like, we'll never forget it. Like that weekend, the Freedom Weekend, So things opened up on the Monday, and then I think I come out for like a whole weekend of raving on that Friday. And I'll never forget that. It was like 4 or 5 raves and just like non-stop and just getting back into it. And these are the things that we'll never forget. And I hope that we cherish, you know, kind of moving forward. And I think we're riding that energy now, and long may we continue to do so, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things standing in the way, like just how things are in the country. So it doesn't feel like we're out of the woods.
No, or maybe that's why there's still that kind of gratitude, like, yeah. And every now and again, if we do get a bit complacent, other things happen, rail strikes, cost of living, and all of these other things that are kind of preventing things from getting back into normal. But what is normal? That'll be my last question for you in this video interview, actually. Nice. And let's get existential for a second. What is normal, Mr. Serum?
Not me, probably. I don't know. Things just keep changing. Like it is. I don't think there is a normal. Like whatever's going on, you can have the rug pulled out from under you in an instant. If there's one thing that lockdown taught me, it's that. Like the normal thing is that like wherever you are, like things are going to change. Like something's going to happen. So if you like how things are now, well, you know, bad news is going to change. And like, if you don't know, like how it is now, well, good news is going to change, you know, like, but then, you know, you're round and round, like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really cool place to end now, because we've talked about your releases coming out and stuff. Is there anything else the world needs to know about Serum right at this moment? I think it's going to come out probably late September this year, or maybe early October, depends how quick I am on editing the video and putting it up. But yeah, is there anything else the world needs to know as we come out of festival season into the clubs, and you're about to drop a hell of a lot of awesome new material? What else does the world need to know?
Well, there's going to be the long-awaited second Kings of the Rollers album. We've got some real big stuff coming, but that will be in progress. I think we'll start to see the next music coming out around November as well. So it's going to be an onslaught, because I've got singles coming every month till January or February time, and then there's a whole load of other music that I'm prepping, just deciding how to release that. But then we're going to have I think a couple more singles for Kings of the Rollers, followed by an album. We're going to be looking at some more events, like we've got to top our Printworks event, which was basically flame grilled all the ravers. Like that was incredible. Like, you know, to that night it had been postponed so many times, and it's like, right, people were starting to question whether it was on, because we'd sold it out. So it's like, right, we don't need any more marketing. They're like, is it still happening? I haven't heard anything. I'm like, well, yeah, it's just sold out. But like, eventually that was meant to be quite soon after lockdown started. Then it just moved and it moved and it moved. And eventually we got there, and we got a little, you know, an extra thing where we had the flamethrowers mounted on the lighting rig that came down. And that was like, that just like blew our socks off playing that. Like I was like, couldn't sleep for a good few days after that. It was just like so buzzing. And we've got to come up with something that's gonna top that. So not easy.
Good luck with that. That's amazing. So that's a bit of an exclusive then, with all of the Kings of Rollers news and stuff like that. So amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really nice to catch up with you. And maybe let's do another Wobblers t-shirt one time soon as well.
Well, yeah, I think we'll have to. Yeah, we'll just, you know, Wobblers coming out. Yeah. This next run of releases all about the Wobblers. So
gaff on,
and and Wave Riders as well. So so going to be some big tunes on the way. But then there's all the new styles I was cooking up during lockdown as well, that I'm deciding what to do with it. It's like, right, okay, what of those is going to be my next big thing that I'm gonna carry out to the next year.
Brilliant. I can't wait to hear it all, man. I can't wait to see it all do damage in the clubs as well. So thank you so much, Mark, for joining me, Mr. Captain Wobbler. And thank you to everybody who's watched this whole interview. Thanks for supporting One More Thing. And please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and all the rest of the stuff that One More Thing does. Thank you very much for watching. And big up, Mark. Nice one.
Yeah, cheers, Dave.
Nice one. There we go. Cool.
Excellent. We are.
One more thing. One more thing. One more thing.